retail and jobs all nearby, while paying close attention to equity issues, to employ multimodal transportation, ending sprawl, and by 2040 we will have fully responded to climate change. As far as actions, have transportation planning respond to community planning, break down silos, specifically employ the 40R program and strategies with that program, and also community benefit districts would be a strategy that will get us to better smart growth.
Thank you, Charlie. Jackie, can I call on you to come up with? All right, so next we'll have the future of walking and biking with Jackie Douglas from Livable Streets.
We solved all the problems in that time. No, it was good. One of the things, everyone was chatting and we kept breaking out into different groups, so lots of new connections made, which is really exciting. And then we kind of rose out themes, and then we got to thinking about the future. A couple things to highlight. One is this real concern and issue around rail trails, and that it's up to local communities to actually design and pay for the design in their local community, but that immediately creates inequality of where resources are. You know, you have a big city versus a small town having resources to actually design it. So rethinking how do we fund local community design, and maybe we do it regionally instead of local by local. The other thing is there's a huge theme in kind of land use and investing in nodes and places, thinking about that network beyond just the corridors and street by street. And a huge one, making available all seasons and making sure that a priority to plow protected bike lanes and sidewalks. Another theme is stop lumping biking and walking as if it's the same thing, and that it's really important to work together, but that it's not the same when it comes to the needs for planning and design. But of course, it's important to work together, but just to think about that and not just being the kind of alternative or off to the side or other thing. A big thing too was thinking about the future of different mobility devices, being able to use paths and different sidewalks and protected bike lanes, and the importance of details, so not to put your water main where your bike lane is, and providing access to biking and walking where there are no other choices for people in different communities. So lots of different things, more to come, and thank you.
All right, Paul, do you want to come share some suburban and rural big ideas?
And rather than carry out my entire pad, I've used my cell phone photo, so hopefully I can read it. Thank you to everyone who participated in our breakout. There was a lot of terrific ideas. State incentives figured very prominently in our conversation, including state incentives to integrate and link regional transit services, state incentives for reverse commute, so that to take people off roads but coming back out of the proverbial hub of the wheel. Expanding transit to all 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts. One would think that would be doable by 2040. Bring jobs along mass transit outside Boston. Ease access to transit and integrate highway and transit planning with multimodal use. So that way you integrate everything from solar and renewable energy at MBTA stations to last mile, first mile service with multimodal shuttles or TMA services. And integrate in with highway access as well. Again, integrate green energy efforts and expand rideshare and create innovative models of transportation linking public-private. And we've all heard about Uber was never anticipated 5 years ago. I'm sure by 2040 there'll be plenty of other things going on that we should be capitalizing on. In terms of strategies, updating policies and incentives to support these visions, such as integrating this type of multimodal approach into transit stops. And frankly, not just funding, we all are very well aware that the T and transit agencies have very long backlogs of deferred maintenance and outmoded equipment. That is absolutely the case. However, we still need our leaders to think boldly and create a bold new vision and bring the transit services in the directions it needs to go long term. And I do think we heard Secretary Pollack lay out a very bold vision, and so I think this is in line with her direction. We do need, again, bold new outreach and communications among key constituencies, everything from regional planning agencies, regional transit agencies, TMAs, municipalities, and the general public. Because we really need to focus on achieving behavioral change by each of us as practitioners, whether it be driving a car, sharing a car, using Uber, using some of the new models. Encouraging cooperative car ownership. We heard Stephanie talk a bit about how that's a changing dynamic, and there needs to be some allowances made for that on the state level. Focus on critical access areas such as market towns. The historical approach outside Boston was to have market towns as sort of seats of infrastructure in regions, capitalize on those. And also expanding the disabled access to services. I think we're all aware of the fact that that is a very real challenge to the disabled community, particularly where you live. And it shouldn't be based on where you live. There should be equal access to disabled services. So, on that note, I'll turn it over.
All right, Elena, if you could come share
That's me.
Julia facilitated. Sorry, last person. Sorry.
Oh, is Lena here? Okay.
The report outs from the transit and demand management session.
Sure, so got a little stand-in facilitation experience here. So for the future of transit and TDM, we talked a lot about data and recognizing that data largely influences people's decision on how to travel, where to travel, when to travel. So first of all, unlocking transit data, making it accessible, making the infrastructure something that people can understand and turn into useful tools. Recognizing that the transportation sector is one of the largest outputs of GHGs. A lot we can do to shape that, to influence the future of climate change, mitigation. We talked a lot about connecting resources and really leveraging the shared asset approach to you as better than Batman and not trying to pull from too high, but to pull from the information that we do have. Through collaborative partnerships, acknowledging that resources are limited and that we need to be smart about where we pull them from and be collaborative about the parties we bring to the table. So through TMAs, public-private partnerships, and also using price to influence TDM, so for parking, transit, tolls, everything. I think that's it. And last but not least, Phineas will share with us the outcomes from the revenues breakout group.
Thank you. So real quickly, we talked about a whole bunch of different ideas for revenue. There was some I'd never heard of, such as ideas around solar, personal rapid transit, which put money back into the system. Ideas about potential small-scale private partnerships that shift design risk to private entities. Ideas about vehicle miles traveled fees. There was a sentiment that it might be that actually the biggest possibilities, at least in the short or medium term, could actually just be the old gas tax. And that sort of related to the conversation we had. It was an interesting conversation. People were throwing out ideas about kind of more regional, local revenue raising around things such as regional ballot initiatives, which could potentially be more appealing to the public because they connect more directly and can have more confidence in a specific kind of project or outcome that they're voting for. And also some of the value capture ideas, similar to the value capture conversation that was happened here earlier. And then there was an interesting kind of twist from that in realizing sort of, well, we see this a lot in other states, and one obstacle here that we need to figure out how to crack this nut is that a lot of the times the governance entities, the county governments, for instance, which are the big agents for this in other states, are largely missing or are not as full a county government system here. So what is the kind of functional equivalent to that county entity? How do we recreate some of that opportunity without the strong county systems here? So it was an interesting conversation. Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to jump up here because we're rapidly approaching the end of our really exciting day. So the last part of our agenda here today, or not the last part, but one of the last parts of our agenda here is our opportunity to open up the floor to you, to all the bright minds we have in this room, our lightning round session. I'm Julia Prang-Wallers, by the way. I'm the Executive Director of Mass Commute. We're the statewide council of TMAs, Transportation Management Associations. So we have about 15 minutes to do this last session. As we were planning this conference, the last few months, those of us on the committee every week having these calls, who are we going to have speak, who's going to be on the panels, how can we get all the best ideas? We knew there was no way to actually get everything on this agenda, so we wanted to make sure there was a part of the day to open it up to you all, to come and share your lightning idea. What do you have to add to this conversation? All the things that have been put on the table. Surely there's a lot more. So I would like to just, call up if you have an idea, you want to shake things up a little bit, put it out there. Just come on and line up here on the side of the stage. We'll come up one by one. But I must warn you that we are going to be very strict about cutting you off at 60 seconds. Okay? And I'm generally a really nice lady, but it could change. Things could change. Line up on the other side. Christina's the real boss here.
It's sponsored by what, Boston?
All right, our first lightning idea.
Right, my name is Jerry, and I work in transportation in the higher education sector. And one of the words that didn't come up very often today, which I feel is a common denominator for everything that we do, and it's one of the most important things that we could think about, and that is safety. I feel as though we have all these great designs and we can build safety into our plans, but we need to also have a comprehensive education program where we teach people about safety. Teach pedestrians how to be safe as well, because pedestrians don't know that a truck can't stop in 2 seconds. School bus drivers don't know how to use their directionals to pull over before they put on their yellow flashers, before they put in. There's a lot of things that, if you just take one safety tip one time a week on your social media, one time a week in your printed media, whatever you do, just put something in about safety to help people learn how to drive safely, how to run a bus safely, or whatever. That's one of the most important things that we can do. Because at the end of the day, we're not transporting cigarettes, we're not transporting Gatorade or toys, we're transporting people, and we have to be very, very safe with that.
Thanks so much. Let's hear the next idea. And actually, I'm going to ask you guys to stand at that mic over there.
Okay.
And I'll stand over here. Watch you from afar.
Hi, my name is Bill Lyons. Most of you know me as the owner of Fort Hill Companies, engineer and planner. Today I'm here to talk to you about an invention. My invention will revolutionize the idea and the conversation about vehicle miles traveled. Previous efforts on vehicle miles traveled have been focused on GPS-based technologies which do not have nationwide acceptance due to privacy concerns. My invention actually uses paid pump technology, so it's point of sale. It's the same way people pay for their gas tax now. We change the conversation and get away from the word tax. We get away and we talk about the word fee, which is far more acceptable to some of the partisan conversations, and we have a way to have a more sustainable and long-term strategy to pay for all the things that everybody here talked about today they want to pay for. So that's my idea. Thank you very much.
Woo-hoo.
Happy to talk.
Thank you so much.
My name is Gabriel Distler, and I think to add to this, we've been talking a lot today about interconnectivity between creating transit networks across the region. I think that also needs to be networks with development. You can't have rapid development in one place without transit keeping up with it. If you go over to the Seaport District in Boston, a lot of development, but the transit has kind of stayed the same as when it was first, thought of being developed in the 90s. So transit needs to keep up with development.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Danny Drenny, resident of Waltham. I have a long list of things to say, but I can only say so much. Anyways, I hope this relevant. I hope that this Commonwealth can support high-speed rail all throughout the state so that you can save the energy efficient save on the environment because high-speed rail is usually electric, use no gas, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Second, in terms of the snow removal, there's one thing there's a new invention coming out that the East Coast has not really applied to, and that is heated concrete. Folks, if you have heated concrete on the street, you won't have any snow plows, you won't have to worry about any snow removals. And lastly, in very congested areas, why not put the parking underground the street? Thank you.
Excellent. You guys are doing great. Flying here.
If you want a better transit system, but don't want to pay more taxes, you should know about Senate Bill 1837. It allows private companies to build and operate efficient transit systems in exchange for paying 5% of gross revenue in taxes. Transit X is creating an automated transit system that is dependable, convenient, safe, and fast. It's an order of magnitude less costly than light rail. Transit X is quiet, high capacity, has 24-hour operation. It's immune to snow and flooding. This morning I met with a group from Bridgewater, Mass. to design their system, and we can do it for your community as well. If you want an exponentially better transit system, you should read about Senate Bill 1837 and then contact your legislators. If you support it, innovative transit will follow, because the best way to reform the MBTA is to open it up to competition. I'm Mike Stanley from Transit X.
Man, just like that.
I didn't know they cared, said one of my students. I'm Rebecca Townsend. I teach at Manchester Community College, the other Manchester, the one in Connecticut. I teach public speaking, I teach communication. Why am I at a transportation event? Because I had a project that was funded by the Federal Transit Administration to work on integrating the voices of people who are called hard to reach, youth, minority, people with low incomes, into transportation planning. This idea has been replicated in other times in Connecticut and elsewhere in the United States, but not yet in Massachusetts. So here's your golden opportunity. Meet with me afterwards and talk with me about how to integrate people whose voices are not captured as part of data into transportation plans. I'm thrilled to say that I shared the stage in 2012, I think it was, with Walk Boston and Bev Scott winning the White House Champions of Change Award for this project. So look forward to talking with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Meet with Rebecca.
Hi, can you hear me okay? I'm John McDougall from 350 Mass, and we're particularly concerned about the climate aspect. And we strongly endorse, for sure, reform in the T, and I'm sure it's needed in MassDOT as well. And we also strongly endorse local options to raise money through local referenda. However, it seems to me there are crucial long-term funding issues, and we've heard a lot about them. We certainly support a carbon tax. We support changing the state constitution for a progressive income tax. Within the transportation sector, we've heard a lot about various options, which we also endorse, like raising the gas tax substantially, not just 3 cents as a few years ago, vehicle miles, travel fees, tolls on all interstates throughout the Commonwealth. And if we're going to get political support for this, it has to be broad-based. So it seems to me we have to think beyond the area served by the MBTA. We have to think seriously about rural and suburban communities. For example, we need to repair and provide significant funding for repairing almost 2,000 bridges that were defined as deficient or obsolete by the American Society of Civil Engineers. Think about that 2,000. We
Thanks
also
so much,
need
John.
sustainable funding for RTAs, and finally, we need seed money for innovative projects in rural and suburban areas. Thank you.
Very important. Thank you.
I'm Judith Van Ham. I'm working with Mike Stanley on getting Senate 1837 passed. You can find a link to submit a petition to the Joint Transportation Committee at Bay State Sun Way, sun like the sun is out. And the form that I'm working on, which is solar personal rapid transit, leaves room for biking and pedestrians. It puts, like all of this, it will put 5% of its gross back into the municipalities and states, so it's making money for us. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Senate Bill.
Hi, my name is Shauna Daly, and I am not a transportation wonk, but I am a political hack. I am looking to create a voting block out of 2 riders and create transportation as an issue as important to make their voting decisions on as taxes and education currently are. And so the way to do that is to create political rewards and penalties for candidates and electeds. So I want to create a PAC and a 501c4 to do all the things that unions and groups like Planned Parenthood do for their issues. So that's questionnaires, endorsements, and negative independent expenditures. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Franny Osman. Just 2 ideas of the many that float around my head. One, RTAs, there ought to be a law that RTAs should reach the edges of their regions. Regional transit authorities should reach the edges and cross into other regions with their fixed routes and with incentives from the state. And my revenue idea that I always have is that MassDOT owns the RMV or is in charge of it. And since all those people that call us all the time looking for data and we hang up on them, why can't we sell our data on a voluntary basis? So I volunteer to get a little savings on my car registration, and I agree to answer 4 surveys a year, something like that. So we're selling our data to out of state.
That's more value capturing. Awesome. Under time, I think we're all set as well. We're almost back on schedule. So thanks everyone for your great ideas. Back to Christina Egan.
All right, so how many of you heard an idea today that you hadn't thought of before and it was good? Awesome. And how many of you met 5 new people that you didn't know before? And how many of you are going to stay in touch with those people? Awesome. All right. So we are in a rapid period of change in transportation. We know there are demographic trends that are changing the way we travel and live and play. Technology is unpredictable and it is disruptive, and we don't really know what's going to happen by 2040, but we do know that we need to stay on top of it as best we can. And we know that climate change is another big change that we're going to be encountering. So we're going to need to adapt really quickly, and we're going to need to do it while we're keeping people central, as Stephanie Pollock said. We really need to make sure that people are central as we're doing our transportation planning, and particularly historically disadvantaged populations. So we are relying on you, the innovators, the thinkers, the doers, to try to make the vision that we started to see happen here at today's conference really happen. And we're going to keep the conversation going right after we hear from our final speaker over at Union Station. There's going to be a cash bar and yummy hors d'oeuvres. We hope you can join us. We're going to hear from Tim Murray and from Mike Taylor about the story of how Worcester has been transformed by transportation. And we think it's going to be a great, very short program while we're all drinking and eating and having fun. So, to get there after this plenary is over, there are directions on the registration table if you want to walk over. Also, Steve O'Neill just came up and whispered in my ear that the Worcester Regional Transit Authority is taking a shuttle that'll be right outside these doors. Will take you directly to Union Station, so you can just step on and step off. Got your choice, transit or walking today. So that is great. So this conference has been highly experimental. We've never tried this before. We've never tried this format. We're going to want to have your feedback. We're going to do it through technology, so please be on the alert for an email survey next week. We'd love to hear how we can make this better. We'd love to have this not be the inaugural and last Transportation Summit. We'd like it to be next year also and the years following, and we hope that we can continually improve like we're trying to do that in transportation. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, Mark Drayson. Mark has been at MAPC for over a decade. He is focused on smart growth and regional collaboration, integrating transportation and housing and land use, environmental concerns, all in the service of promoting social equity and in fighting climate change. He has served as a state rep, so for several terms. He's run for lieutenant governor. He has a lot of political experience, so he's not just about ideas, he's also about getting things done. And he's also a true visionary. And we've been really lucky to have him in the greater Boston area. He's been transforming the greater Boston area for a long time now into one that's more just, more affordable, where there's more opportunity and it's more climate friendly. And last but not least, he's always, always a treat to hear speak. So with that, please join me in welcoming Mark Drayson.
Thank you, Christina, and thanks to all of you for staying so long through a long but very intriguing day with lots of great ideas. In speaking to a crowd at the end of an event, there are two dangerous things you can do. One, the lesser of those two, is to stand between an audience and hors d'oeuvres. By far the greater one is to stand between an audience and alcohol. So I am forced to be brief, and I promised Christina that I would not speak for more than 45 minutes. So, is it actually possible to write something? Is someone writing something on that magical screen there, Lizzie? Okay, great. I would like you to think about two verbs that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to give you those and ask you to put two of my own definitions, which you will not find in any dictionary next to those. The first one is aspire, which is to hope with intentionality and specificity. And the second is to demand, which is to ask, or as we say in Boston, to ask, with a sense of urgency and insistence. Thank you. I am feeling very aspirational today for two reasons. First, because as I was coming here, I was concerned that it was going to be mainly a conference about our really hard winter and the difficult problems that it created for us in the transportation field and the fights and battles that we were going to have to endure over the course of the next several months to cope with that and to try and reverse what might be considered a series of setbacks. We all know that those things exist and we need to deal with them, but I am feeling aspirational because that was not actually the focus of today's conference. To some extent in the morning, but especially from the time that Secretary Pollock stood up to talk, right through the lightning presentations and the list of people that we had here, stepping up to the microphone, and Christina's closing remarks, there was just an endless flow of ideas backed up by ideals about what people would like to do to make this transportation system work better for everybody in an equitable and affordable way. Ideas that involve technology, ideas that involve accomplishing big goals with less money, ideas about penetrating neighborhoods where transportation is non-adequate, whether it be rural areas or inner city areas, about approaching our political objectives in new ways with different arguments. I couldn't even list them all. They came so fast, and I'm glad they've all been recorded because it reminds us that our goal is not just to keep knocking at the door and saying the same thing all the time. Our idea as leaders in this field is to figure out new ideas, new strategies, new ways, and then to get other people excited about them so we can continue to reach our goals even if the past way didn't work quite as well as we wanted it to. The second reason that I'm feeling aspirational is because of something that I did with my family over the last several weeks. I had a chance to go to the Netherlands with them for a couple of weeks, which is where my family is from. It's a very special place to me. And you cannot help but see something and feel something about the transportation system in Amsterdam and throughout the country, but particularly in the capital. We woke up in downtown Amsterdam, which is a city of about 800,000 people, larger than Boston, every morning, and you'd wake up in bed, and this is what you would hear: birds and children. And one of the reasons for that is because most cars are restricted from downtown Amsterdam, and their definition of downtown is far larger than what we would consider to be downtown. We traveled on buses, on trams, on trains that were unfailingly prompt, which meant, because I'm from Boston, that I missed several. Unfailingly prompt, with courteous people in them, at, for the most part, reasonable prices, clean, ecologically friendly, not particularly noisy. They would mow you down if you weren't careful. That was one issue that I think they need to deal with. And I even noticed on the trams that several times they actually didn't even collect a fare from us, and somehow that hasn't broken or destroyed the system. We biked. One day, my son and I, who's 11, for 3 hours, through the central city, on bike paths the entire way, over bridges, through underpasses, everywhere. And then all of a sudden, at one street, the city ended and the farms began, and we spent another hour driving through, biking through the countryside, on bike paths again, with lots of company the entire way. I must say, we were identifiable as Americans because we were the only ones without helmets, but that aside. And through all of this experience, we saw a transportation system that worked. I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm sure it's not perfect all the time. But we should and can aspire to a reasonably funded, publicly supported, and when I say publicly supported, I don't just mean money, I mean the people support it and want it to work and understand why it's important. We can and should aspire to something like that in the richest country in the world, in one of the richest parts of the richest country in the world, and we should not have to be apologetic about saying that is our goal and here's how and why we should get there. But as aspirational as I may feel, for all the reasons that I've listed, I also feel that we need to pay attention to the other word, demand. We need to continue to be insistent. As a former legislator and as a politico, I guess, in many different ways, a little bit like Shauna, I guess, was indicating that she is, I just feel that elections matter a tremendous amount and legislative battles matter a tremendous amount. I know that sometimes we hold ourselves above them, not T for mass, but I'm sure some people in the room. Sometimes we question whether or not they really influence how things move forward, but they matter a great deal. And over the next few months, the final debate around the fiscal 16 budget for the Commonwealth, and then the subsequent debate around the governor's bill, will have a huge influence over our ability to achieve those goals to which we aspire for the next decade. The reform bill in 2009 did, the reform and revenue bill in 2013 did. This next bill and these next budgetary decisions, whatever they are and whichever way they go, will have a huge impact over the degree to which we succeed and what success will look like. So we all need to be ready to roll up our sleeves, to participate actively in T for Mass, to call our legislators, to interact with the administration, to write letters, to knock on the door, and to do so insistently and forcefully. I have been troubled over the last several months, particularly by what I see as a series of attacks by various parties on the transit system in Massachusetts, and particularly the MBTA. I know everybody likes to rise up and say, I am shocked to find inefficiencies in this system. But some of the arguments are really tough to swallow, like, boy, we looked at the T and we found out that they couldn't live within their budget. Yeah, they couldn't live within their budget because their budget was always way too small. There are plenty of reforms that should happen. We need to keep them front and center. We should support the reasonable ones. We should unmask the ones that are not reasonable. But we should always remember that fundamentally, the country, the Commonwealth, the region needs to put the money behind transit, walking, and biking that corresponds to the value people place upon those services. And right now, we're not there. I'm always thrilled to hear Stephanie speak. I consider it a wonder and a miracle that she's Secretary of Transportation. I keep wondering if I'm going to wake up and learn that that isn't true. But it is true, and it's a fabulous thing for all of us. But we should listen carefully to the challenge she placed before us, personally, but also as a representative of the administration, to engage in the debate about the governor's legislation, to be willing to ask for change, but prepared to suggest alternatives. And those alternatives are going to be very important, because we don't want the final result to include a $500 million reduction in T funding. We do not want the final result to involve any walking back from the forward funding of the regional transit authorities that was promised in the 2013 Act. If we need some kind of a new board or a control board or whatever they want to call it, it needs to report with clarity to the Secretary, because frankly that will give me more confidence about the quality of that board's work. So let's not just trash anyone's ideas, but let's get in there and participate in the debate. Figure out what we want, and then demand it with facts and figures and emotion behind our request. Thank you very much.